and I would say finally that we should have absolutely zero asylum seekers or refugees whatsoever.
Ooh. Assalamu alaikum YouTube, it's your boy Uzzi Boy back with another video here today, Sham. Today is episode 2, yes, episode 2 of the Uzzi cast. We have a very special guest with us today. People label this man a lot of things: a neo-Nazi, a far-right extremist, an extreme nationalist, and people have, unfortunately put this guy through a lot. I think he's quite a sound guy. Today we're going to be talking about his upbringing, what he thinks of Ireland as a whole, his political ideologies, his college life at the moment, and what he faces as a result of how he believes, and just life in general. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in, Jake Fitzsimons. Alright, sir, introduce yourself. Who are you?
My name is Jake Fitzsimons. I'm a politics and history undergraduate,
Okay.
a political activist,
Yep.
and all going well, perhaps in the future, hopefully a political candidate.
Okay, a political activist, a political candidate. Okay, cool. Now obviously, me and you, we met about a few months ago, like 8 months ago. We met at a protest, and it was very interesting speaking to yourself, basically, because I had an idea about people in kind of like, let's say, the Nationalist Party. People make them out to be a certain way, but it's good getting to speak to a lot of them, because you kind of realize that they're just people that really care for their country. Like they don't have any bad intent or really like malice towards anything. They're just people with genuine concerns like anyone else. Would you agree? Or
Yeah, I think obviously stereotypes exist for a reason.
Of
There
course.
are always going to be people on both sides that fit the stereotype, but they're always the most extreme examples, and they're always the minority example too. I feel like most people on both sides tend to be just fairly normal, everyday people who you could see all the time.
That's
They're
it, man. That's
family
it.
members, friends, neighbours who have just legitimate concerns, would have disagreements on how to achieve the same desired result.
Yeah.
I think
No,
online perpetuates it more. In person, people tend to be a bit more nuanced and open-minded. I think online, you have the most into it people and the most vocal minorities going back and forth at each other.
yeah.
Make
That's
it
it. That's
seem like
it.
there's more of a division than there is.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I just call myself a nationalist, and I'm always advocating for what I believe to be the best interests, the best outcome, the security and prosperity of all Irish people.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's fair. And like honestly, what's kind of cool about this particular episode is that I have I've quite a diverse background. Like I'm born here, but my parents are both foreigners. They're both from Pakistan originally. I'm a Muslim, but I grew up and was born and raised in Ireland. And basically, the reason why I wanted to have you on here was because I wanted to show people that people just have the wrong end of the stick when it comes to whatever nationalist party, far right party, whatever you want to label them as. I mean, a label is just a fucking label, really, anyway. But it's like people just have their own kind of way of thinking, and unfortunately, the internet has a lot of influence over it. But when you get to like talk to people like in your political party, they're actually fairly okay. I'd say okay, you get the stupid bunch everywhere, but you get stupid people everywhere in general, anyways.
Oh, Posh, Greenwich, Macara. By the way, happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you too, brother. Happy Easter to you too. We just had Ramadan there as well, but I do understand it was Easter, and I wish you all the best with that as well. Do you celebrate? Are you religious at all, or?
No, I'm not particularly religious. I'm somewhat spiritual. I'm open-minded.
Okay, cool. So tell me
I
a little
would
bit.
be a big supporter of general Christian culture, however, even if I wouldn't be a subscriber to Christian faith.
Okay, so like you're a believer that religion is overall a good thing, especially the Christian faith, because that's what you grew up with in Ireland. Is that right?
I embrace elements of Christian culture.
Okay.
I believe that
Yeah.
Christian culture has proven itself to be, out of all the different faiths,
Yeah.
the best, highest achieving, and overall most beneficial for the common good
Yeah.
out of all
Okay.
derivative cultures related to faiths.
Yeah, that's absolutely acceptable. No problem. But obviously, I don't come from the same faith as you, but I come from a very similar faith, which is Islam. It's another Abrahamic religion. But the principles of it are more or less the same. Obviously, there's a few differences here and there in terms of like the belief in the higher power. Obviously, most Christians would agree that Jesus is God and is the Son of God. We think a little bit different. We think he's a prophet. But yeah, man, that's basically the difference. I want to touch a little bit on your upbringing. Tell me a little bit about the upbringing of Jake Fitzsimons. Like, when did you kind of take into politics? What was school like for you? Were you always kind of into politics, or no? It kind of hit a bit different in life. Tell me a bit about that.
Oh, yes, I have always been into politics and military. When I was a little kid, I remember I was in primary school even from that age, and all of the other boys would be watching football or cartoons on the TV at home. I'd be watching the 601 news,
Yeah.
looking at political events or World War II documentaries,
Okay.
or reading political or military encyclopedia books. I've always been into it, and I never stopped the playing with little green men phase either. I've always been into military related culture, and I'm in the military at the moment or going into it in induction. Like to explore
Okay.
that as a possible career option as well. In terms of personal life, my upbringing was quite a harsh one. It was in a household defined by substance abuse,
Sorry about that.
violence, and erratic atmosphere.
Yeah.
So it was one where I learned many lessons, such as the ability to be independent, the importance of being independent and
Yeah.
backing yourself, because no one else is going to have your back ultimately
That's
in the
true.
world when people of.
100%
And
valid. Yeah.
it also shaped a lot of my philosophical and political ideology
Yep.
based on hyper-utilitarianism,
Mhm.
despising of waste and people not carrying their load in society, not contributing, settling for mediocrity,
Yep.
dragging others down.
When you say substance abuse, obviously not to kind of get a bit too personal here, but was this like was this like people in your family in terms of like your parents, your siblings, if you had any, or was it extended family? What was the kind of whole issue with substance abuse, if you don't mind me asking?
I have a substance addicted parent who
Okay.
is very violent and abusive.
I'm really sorry about that. Look, obviously, when it comes to the families of people, I think everybody has the right to good parents, man. It's like it's you should be in a home where you're looked after, not where you're the one looking after them, especially at such a young age. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it caused me to have to grow up at a very young age. I was always mentally much more matured than my peers growing up,
Yeah.
and that, along with my, some would say, quirky or eccentric personality, resulted in me always being a loner growing up as a kid and as an adolescent. I had to
Yeah.
accustom myself to enjoying my own company, relying on myself, being confident in myself,
Yeah.
uplifting myself,
Yeah.
being comfortable with my own thoughts.
Yeah. No, that's completely understandable. Like when you're the only one relying on yourself, obviously life does become hard and people kind of channel it out in different ways. Some is like sports, some is, I guess, schoolwork, as in they're kind of good academically. Would you say your thing was like politics mainly, or did you have any other interests like outside of that? Like, were you ever a sporty child, football, Gaelic football, basketball, etc.?
Well, not really, because that required a lot of social interaction. Those type of activities would require interaction with other humans, which I've never been overtly fond of, and I was even more sheltered and shy as a child in terms of a personal sense.
Huh.
But I've always been quite good at and quite passionate about public speaking. I've always been supremely confident in myself, taking leadership positions and initiative amongst my peers, whether it be co-workers, friend groups, what
Okay.
have you. Some of that was due to me being mentally more mature than my peers, which made it easier to take man position, so to speak. But
Yeah.
another part of it as well was just my personality. I've always been inclined towards wanting to represent and lead others and provide for others, I suppose, in a sort of detached imposition sense.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so obviously you said that kids at your kind of age in primary school and whatever secondary school, etc., were kind of like into, let's say, sports, and you were kind of mainly into your politics, World War II, history, and all that type of way. How did that make other people in your circle kind of feel around you? Like for example, did anyone ever, like, let's say, take the piss out of you? Oh, Jake's a little wee nerd. Jake's this, or was everyone just kind of um, like, their own kind of chill way about it, if that makes sense? Like, were they was there any bullying going on in your school? Was there any I don't know, name calling, abuse, that kind of way there? Because obviously secondary school in Ireland can be very difficult for a lot of people, so, and primary. So.
No, I was okay. I'd had an okay childhood. I mean, I've never been an overly sociable person, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty personable. I get along with most people.
Okay.
I would have found it quite difficult to get peers to relate to me
Yes.
because we had different wavelengths in terms of mental maturity and in
Yeah.
terms of awareness that would be typical for people my age. So I often found myself feeling like an adult around other children, and sometimes that would upset me when dealing with teachers too, because when you're 12 years old but mentally 15, 16, 17, it can feel quite condescending and disparaging when you have the perception that you're being talked down to
Yeah.
like a child as an adult
Okay.
by authority figures.
Yeah.
So part of that made me leave secondary school when I was 15, but
Oh.
that's
Oh.
about it.
Wow. So wait, you actually were you like an early school leaver? Were you?
Yeah, I left secondary school when I was 15.
Wow. Okay.
Left after the junior.
Okay. So was that like after the equivalent of what, like the English people have their GCSEs? We have our junior cert and leaving cert. Would that be after your junior cert, or did you kind of leave it before then?
After junior, sir. I
Okay.
left secondary school in 2018.
Okay, interesting. Okay. And how did your parents kind of take to this? Like obviously, even like myself, I know a lot of people that have very strict parents, even though they might be like Irish or English parents. But like Irish parents can be quite strict to a degree. So were yours like particularly angry about it? How did they take to the whole idea?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, one of my parents tends to be a bit preoccupied, so
Yeah,
never really cared much or took much investment in mine and my siblings'
yeah,
childhood developments.
yeah.
And as for my other parent, well, if either of my parents had objected to it, which they didn't, I wouldn't have really cared. I had grown a lot of resentment from my parents due to my upbringing, so I didn't really view them as
Important.
respectable figures in terms of listening to their authority. I decided I've always been a pretty stubborn and self-driven person.
Yeah.
What I think matters to me more than what anybody else thinks. So if I decide I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Okay. I
So
mean, I
no
mean, look,
discrimination
it is
there.
a good mindset. It's motivational. I'll say that. But at the same time, take into account the fact that, well, a 15-year-old, because you said you were 15 when you left, right?
Mm.
That is a child. So it's like I was speaking to someone else about this. I'm like, I thought the legal age for leaving school is 16. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know, unless it's
It
changed, has
is.
it? Okay.
It is. My birthday's in August.
Oh,
I turned
okay.
16 in August,
Oh,
and
okay.
then
So
I
okay.
can register myself for fifth year.
Oh, okay. So you basically kind of like knew you were turning 16 at some point anyway, and then you were like, well, before the school year starts, let me just kind of get out. Was that what you're thinking, or?
Yeah, I just did some odd jobs here or there, a bit of retail work,
Okay.
and then through the COVID era, and then I did a couple QQI courses. First one was in retail sales, and then a level up in journalism and psychology, and then I used that diploma to get into college to now study politics and history.
Okay, and is that level 7 or level 8 you're doing now?
It's a bachelor's.
Bachelor's. Okay. Cool.
And I want to do a master's afterwards. I'd like to study economics formally as well.
Okay, cool.
Perhaps international relations too.
I've done a very similar course to yourself in terms of like
Maybe
the
even law.
I did business and IT. Obviously, we covered a lot of like economics, and we covered a lot of like stuff along that line as well. Even a little bit of politics was kind of one of the modules in our course as well. It's very interesting. I just completed like the degree now. Are you what year are you in? Are you in your final year or
Second out of 3 years.
second out of? Okay, so you got one more after this.
Yeah. Well, if I become student union president, I'll have to defer a year, and then I also want to do a master's afterwards. But I only need a bachelor's to do a cadetship for the army, so we'll see where we're at.
Okay,
After
nice,
that.
interesting. Okay, so look. Obviously, you're in college now. Okay, you're in your second year. You used all your qualifications to get there, which is quite impressive. Despite the fact that you left school quite early, was there any point where you regretted it? Was there any point where you were like, shit, why did I leave school? It's a regret of mine. I wish I just, tugged it out for 2 more years and did my exams and whatnot. Or were you just like, I'm glad I'm gone? What was your thought process after the deed was done?
No. I mean, when COVID happened, I had the realization of, oh, well, if I had stayed in secondary school, I would have actually passed all of my final year
Yep.
exams automatically because of COVID.
Yep.
But obviously, there's no way to know that. Hindsight is 2020. No one could have predicted COVID would happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of personal decision validity, no, I never had any doubt, and I never regretted it.
Okay, so would you say like when you make a decision, you're just like no regrets, it is what it is, or do you kind of ponder upon it, just generally speaking, like?
Yeah, I mean, uh, I'm a proponent of self-preservation and self-advancement, so I don't consider myself an impulsive man. I think impulsivity is a characteristic of inferior spirit, so I wouldn't consider myself to be impulsive,
Huh.
but I am very headstrong and confident. When I make a decision, I trust myself and I stick to it.
Okay, cool. Now obviously moving back onto kind of politics here a little bit, you would consider yourself a nationalist, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now there's been a lot going on in Ireland. Okay, lately, like a hell of a lot of stuff has been going on. It's even stuff that like I've been noticing, and that I haven't really kind of talked about much with a lot of people because I feel like it can be a bit of a sensitive topic when it comes to discussing it, right? So I thought if I was to discuss it, I may as well bring somebody on that is open to listening to people and kind of open to sharing their view as well. Okay, when it comes to your political views, were you always a nationalist, or did that kind of like come a bit later? And like how did you realize you were an Irish nationalist or a patriot, however you want to kind of call it?
No, to me, nationalism just means you love your country,
Okay.
you love your people,
Yeah.
and to me, it's not something you should become. It's the default state that
Okay.
is sometimes kept pure and sometimes corrupted. But I think ideally with nationalism, it's always an inherent sense of shared spirit,
Okay.
and it's something that I've always possessed. It's something that I view as the default state, and I think it's something that all other philosophies and political outlooks that I agree with are derivative from. In fact, I wouldn't even call nationalism a political ideology,
Yeah.
period. I would call it just love for your country, and all political ideologies at some level are derived from that
Okay.
and can even converge at some points.
I'm a believer in what you're saying too. Like love your country. It's very important that that a country is looked after. It's taken care of. It's respective. I mean, it's respected, and that that it's safe, because at the end of the day, like a country is designed so people can live in it, right? Obviously, Ireland at the moment is it's going through a heavy amount of immigrants are basically coming into the country, and a lot of people do have a concern that, look, these people aren't vetted. We don't know who they are. We don't know we don't really know where they're coming from. We don't have a complete background check on them, right? Should we let these people in, right? What's your kind of What's your kind of like whole ethos behind that? Do you think that do you think there's truth behind this, that we that you know, these immigrants may not be the best for the country? Do you think that do you think that like they should be given an opportunity to kind of like settle down here, or should there be more of like, should the borders kind of be closed temporarily? Well, what's give me your thoughts on that, man.
Well, first and foremost, I think there should be a complete freeze on any migration, really whatsoever, or at least the vast majority, until we're out of a housing and homeless crisis.
Okay.
I also don't believe any foreign nationals or immigrants whatsoever should be prioritised before the native Irish.
Okay.
And regarding non-nationals, I don't think there should be any entitlement to any sort of social benefits whatsoever.
Okay.
In terms of demographic makeup, I believe that ideally as many migrants as possible to your country would be of similar ethnicity or cultural compatibility reasons.
Okay.
I think that ideally the vast majority of migrants to Ireland would either be Irish diaspora or originating from the Anglosphere.
Yeah.
And then the second tier to them would be other Europeans.
Okay.
And then you can get further into sub-tiers after that, but generally speaking, I'd be quite sceptical and want a heavy mandate and low quota on anyone else outside of that. I believe that any migrants coming here should be highly contributive and either work highly specialised jobs that natives cannot in adequate supply provide, or work extremely low skilled jobs that are designed to be there to serve the natives. It's when they take up the middle jobs, I would say finally jobs and the middle skilled jobs that make up the bulk of our economy and start we should have absolutely zero white collars and the blue collar workers that we have an issue.
Ooh. Okay. No. The thing. Okay. Here's the thing. Yeah. I love the fact that you're so open about this. Okay, because like I said, I'm willing to sit down and have a discussion with everybody. There's obviously people, from what you just said there alone, right? There's obviously going to be people that are going to probably not like me very much after the podcast. They might not like you very much either. So you'd be like, oh, why is he bringing so-and-so on? He just said this about asylum seekers, my cousins, and this, da-da-da-da-da-da. But the whole beauty, guys, of this podcast is that, you know, he gets to share his opinions just as I get to share mine. So for anybody who's kind of, you know, listening and, you know, saying, oh, this lad's full of this, and this lad, why is this guy platforming him? It's so you know, everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to get their kind of point across. Now, you said something very interesting there about asylum seekers, right? I was wondering, why do you feel the way that you feel about asylum seekers? Is there a particular reason? Is it a particular like? Is it a race or religion issue? Is it a cultural issue? Is it like what's the dynamic in which you can go, fuck, I just don't want asylum seekers into the country? What's the main kind of like reasoning behind it? I'm just curious.
Well, firstly, it's because we have a record amount of homeless people in the country, 17,000, and we're in a housing crisis. I don't believe we should be giving properties away to anyone coming into the country from outside, while any of our own, let alone such a substantial amount of our own, struggle. So there's the logistical reason for that. Healthcare and housing is overrun with demand.
Yep.
I don't believe we should be putting extra strain. Secondly, they take up money and they don't contribute to the economy.
Okay.
And then thirdly of all, well, I mean, they come from war-torn and underdeveloped countries.
Yeah.
Hence why they're asylum seekers. If they lived in good countries, they wouldn't be seeking asylum, right?
Of course.
This is important to distinguish. We're not talking about regular immigrants here.
Yeah.
Who come to another country just to explore the world and enhance their experience, get cultural dives to broaden their scope of experience in the world.
Yeah.
We're talking about asylum seekers. They are coming to another country from their own because they want to escape it for their livelihood. So the countries are obviously not good countries to be coming from. They're underdeveloped.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't have adequately maintained and legitimate civil services, which means that I don't think we can trust their verification and security affirmation coming into the country.
Okay, yeah.
I think that asylum seekers actually contribute further to the demise of their country, because if all of the people who aren't involved in the degradation of a nation state leave, well, that just leaves the people who do benefit or are even partaking in and causing the degradation of that state remaining, which perpetuates the cycle. Asylum seekers are not merely fleeing a failed state, they are part of the failing of their state. And I also don't believe that we should be accepting people from any countries that we ourselves are told not to go to. Take Somalia, for example.
Okay.
I've been going heavy and hard at Somalians recently, and I've been getting a lot of flack for it.
Okay.
Recently, at the Students' Union debate from my college, I got called out for my criticism of accepting Somalis into the country, and I don't take a word of it back. I didn't then, and I don't now, and I won't ever.
Okay.
The government of Ireland has a do not travel whatsoever. Maximum warning against Somalia.
Yeah.
So it's quite simple, in my opinion, and quite logical and rational. We should not be accepting people from any country that we ourselves are told never to go to.
Okay.
For cultural and security vetting reasons, along with the logistical strain that I mentioned previously.
Yeah. No. Okay. Look. That's a very interesting perspective on kind of like what you just told me there. The counter argument, which I hear from the opposing side, which is the left, the far left, whatever you kind of want to call them, is that, well, Irish are all over the world, and they kind of, were all around different countries. They built America, they built the UK, etc., etc. What would you kind of say to that statement? Their argument would be, well, listen, why can't refugees come here if they're willing to contribute? Just as if the Irish people, like the native Irish, went to different countries to build their economy. What would you kind of say to that?
I would say I completely agree. The Irish did build America. The Irish did build much of modern Great Britain. No foreigners are building Ireland. Ireland has already been built. The Irish built Ireland, and we built it from scratch by ourselves. Okay? We settled. We were proud settlers of the United States, and we contributed greatly.
Yeah.
Foreigners such as third worlders, Asians, Africans, they're not coming here as pillars of creation or enhancement for our country.
Yeah.
All right? At best, they contribute enough to be worth having the merit to stay.
Yeah.
But they did not build this country. This country has been built by the Irish and is a functioning modern nation state thanks to the Irish. The other thing I would say is those people are lacking the context of the time and circumstance in which the Irish mass emigrated. Right?
Yeah.
We emigrated in the 19th and early 20th century, which is completely different to the modern means of immigration, affordability, and availability of opportunity now. Back then, if you wanted to get from the rural countryside of Connacht to New York City, you're talking months and so much effort. Getting your way across the country to a dock, getting on a boat, getting the money for a boat, getting all of your family and all of your supplies on, spending weeks, if not months, on a ship. Captain dies or something happens to the captain, you're in a very bad situation.
Okay.
Anyone gets sick, you're in a very bad situation. There's a good chance sometime along the way, if you have children, at least one of them is going to die. Your wife could die, your husband's going to die, your siblings. And then once you actually get to America or Canada, you have to contest with the environment, the wilderness. You have to contest with other people to settle land, to go out on a carriage with as much food as you can afford to buy, with a wagon that you can just about get the money together to buy. And you need to settle on land, and then you need to manage a farm for years. When one single bad season can set you back years, if not destroy you entirely. And the point of all of this is that back then there was a natural filter to the quality of the immigrants coming, because all of that was extremely unlikely to survive, and you knew that when taking on the challenge. So only the utmost determined and hardest people on the inside even had a chance of surviving all of this and making a new life for themselves. There was a natural social Darwinian filter. Nowadays, someone from Nigeria with a couple days notice and planning can get on a plane and go straight to London with no effort and immediately have all the services available to them to satisfy all of their needs. There's no natural filter in place nowadays because of modern technology and modern geopolitically interconnected dynamics to ensure some sort of inherently contributive factor in the migrants coming.
Okay. Okay. No, that's a very broad perspective. I'm sure you do hear that argument a lot about the whole immigrants going to America, and that's kind of like the left's counterpoint. They tend to talk about that a lot. Just to be clear though, you're like, when it comes to immigrants, asylum seekers, like you just mentioned, you're not for asylum seekers, but you don't mind immigrants coming into this country as long as they're hardworking people, correct?
Sure.
Like,
They're culturally compatible. And also, just going back briefly, for what it's worth, I actually do disapprove of and have actively criticised a lot of the emigration following the famine here.
Yeah.
Now, overall, I do think it is a huge benefit and a net positive that we emigrated so much, because of the amount of influence that we now have on larger countries via diaspora and the soft power that we get from that no other country our size can claim.
Right.
However, the amount of people who emigrated from Ireland following the famine is more than the people who died. We suffered a similar famine in the 1700s that per population percentage actually killed just as much as the famine in the 1840s, but we still recovered just fine because no one emigrated from that, or barely any. So it's the people who emigrated from the famine that destroyed our population amount more than the people who died. So I actually have criticised a lot of the emigration, and generally speaking, I don't approve of Irish people emigrating. When Irish people now, people my age, and I know this because there are plenty of people my age who are thinking about moving to other countries because they are dissatisfied with quality of life here, and I always chew them out for it. I tell them not to. I say it's turning your back on your country. I would never move from this country no matter how bad it gets, because I love it, and any true nationalist would never emigrate.
wow, okay. So you're telling me, let's say, okay, well, you study history and politics right now. Let's say you were offered a job, right? Like, let's say you were approached, you open up your email and you see the letter, "Dear Jake Fitzsimons, we would like you to come and accept a job at whatever university of whatever the fuck, someplace in America." Yeah, you wouldn't take the job and leave the country even if it was for like more better salary, better working conditions, or you wow, okay.
And it's something that I am really upset with, because so I'm a politics student, politics and history. I'm the only person in my class who actually wants to go for political office, by the way.
Okay.
Almost everyone in my class, in fact, it might even be literally everyone except for me, wants to be a teacher. And a huge amount of them have talked about, as soon as they get their bachelor's degree, they're going to Australia, they're going to Dubai. And it makes me so sad. And that's one of the reasons that I'm a student activist, and I'm trying to fix things in this country to stop people my age from wanting to leave. I have left the country. I've left the island of Ireland once in my entire life, and it was to go to Portugal on holidays when I was 5. Other than that, I've never left the island of Ireland.
So you've never stepped foot out of the country except at the age of 5?
No. I've never left the island of Ireland. I've only ever left the island of Ireland once in my entire life.
That is a clip bar moment right there. sorry, I'm just making a bit of a joke out of it. No,
I'm proud to say that. I'm proud to say.
Yeah, no.
I would travel to other countries. Part of it is just circumstantial. It's not all just based on principle. But no, I would never move to another country. Absolutely not.
Okay, so under no circumstances.
I'd never live in another country. I'd visit other countries, sure.
Okay.
It's just due to circumstance mostly that I haven't visited other countries.
Okay.
Money, opportunity, etc. But I'd never lived in another country, absolutely ever. And I look down on people who do, quite frankly.
Wow. Okay.
I understand why they do, but I don't endorse it. I can't. Not in my heart. I just can't.
Is that kind of more from like a personal perspective, or is that is that entirely personal, or is that political as well? You said I can't endorse it, right? Like, do you mean like you can do you mean like you have no room for people who do that, or it's just like it's just entirely personal to you, just
I mean, I'm not gonna stop being friends with someone who does decide to move, or call them start the other, or disown them. But no, I don't. I actively discourage anyone who's Irish to leave Ireland permanently or even semi-permanently. And for me, that's just the way any nationalist would be. This is my home. I love it so much. I love it more than life itself. I never want to leave. Certainly would never want to make a life for myself anywhere else, because to me, Ireland is my life. And I mean, I think that for political purposes as well also, it's a valid stance to have, albeit somewhat radical, because if everyone who's dissatisfied with the country leaves, well, that's an extra nationalist vote lost in the next election, which gives the current establishment more power. You should stay and fight. Stay and fight for your country. That's to
Okay.
me what Irish spirit is. It's courage and it's fighting.
Okay. All
Not
right.
giving up and retreating.
Pure Celtic spirit, yeah. Okay, no, that's a very interesting perspective. So I've never I've spoken to a few nationalists. I have a very good mate who's a nationalist. His name's Declan. We're actually we've been friends for like a long amount of time. But this is the first time I'm ever kind of hearing of the fact that you wouldn't really be an advocate of you know, somebody else like
No.
go. It's fine. You're entitled to have the view, brother. It's just I've never heard it before, which is a little bit of a reason why it's a shock to me. But it's I guess if that's how you feel, then that's how you feel.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if I'd be against immigration, and part of the reason I'm against immigration, among many others, is to preserve demographic
yeah.
strength and dominance.
I mean,
being against immigration also adds into that.
I mean, you're being consistent with the point that you're making. I can't take anything away from you, but it's just it's just I've never kind of personally heard anyone from really any political party kind of say as in like I said.
Those are the best people to speak to. Those are the best guests. The people.
Of course, like that's why I want. That's why
I know way too many nationalists.
Yeah.
Who have said, and I say nationalists like that. I know way too many nationalists who say they want to move somewhere else because the country's going downhill.
Yeah.
Or too many nationalists who go to England on the weekends to watch the football team they support.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Kneel.
Kneel, yeah. You should get a T-shirt saying kneel on it. fucking sell like chocolate muffins, man. Okay. Obviously, when it comes to politics, right, we have a lot of things we want to discuss. Like I said, you can say whatever you really want on this podcast. My whole deal is I'm pretty unfiltered. I don't really give a fuck, really, whatever. Like my idea is let people say what they want to say. It's more or less uncensored. Like, you know, if you don't have a problem with it for the majority of the show and majority of the issues, I don't really have a problem with it. So we're just going to discuss really.
Yeah, and I love people like you. I love grassroots.
Yeah,
media
like
content creators like this.
Okay.
You know, because the likes of like Virgin Media or RTE, what have you. You know, they're not going to have people like
yeah,
you.
they're not going to have people like you on.
They freeze us out. The mainstream media freeze us out. So
Yeah.
we need grassroots,
Yeah.
community-based,
Yeah.
individual, independent
Yeah.
creators like
Yeah.
yourself and citizen journalists like yourself.
Yeah.
No, those are the people that we need to encourage.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
if you
Look.
upload this video, they can get the same amount of views as any mainstream
Of course.
media outlet.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beauty of the modern digital age.
Yeah, it should have been the beauty of just life in general. Like, I think, like speaking freely is what makes a human a human. If you tell a human don't say something and don't do something, well, it has two effects. Either it makes him want to do it more, or it reserves him so much to the point where, like, he feels like he's a fucking robot. And I just, like, obviously, I'm not going to go advocate for, you know, people to do a whole bunch of crazy shit, like, you know, like all the Dublin riots and all that. Like, I was against all that personally, because I don't see the point of, like, destroying your own facilities and your own land just to make a point. I'm never for violence, and I never fucking have been. But what I will say is, when it comes to speech, yeah, people should be allowed to talk freely. Now, I know that one or two things is going to happen after the podcast is done, brother, right? I'm going to get a lot of backlash because this is going to get chopped up into clips. I'm going to clip it up as well, obviously for advertising, but it's going to get chopped up.
I want you to clip it up and make it as clickbait as possible. Both because I want you to get views and traction, and I also want me to get views and traction. So make it as clickbait as possible. You can deep fry the thumbnails. You can quote
Muslim brings far right hooligan on the. I can just imagine all the shit people would do to this, but it's
Irish Nick Fuentes.
Irish Nick Fuentes and Irish Nick Fuentes and albino Muslim.
do you like the clickbait titles like, is this the new Irish Nick Fuentes? Question mark.
Yeah. That's exactly what's gonna happen, man. Fuck. All right. Now we're going to talk about a bit of a different issue, which is kind of on the rise in Ireland. Okay, we'll go back to immigration and kind of people coming into the country, etc. Because I got more to talk about that as well. This issue is kind of more with the younger generation, and feel free to speak as much as you want about this. Okay, it's going around schools, colleges, workplaces, and that's the LGBT, right? I was going to ask you what, on a general basis, what's your thoughts on the LGBT community?
So, yeah, this has been a topic of discourse lately because of certain events related to Pride.
It's getting spicy, folks. Tune in.
It's been going on at my college that I spoke out about, and it was also a subject of questioning for me at the presidential debate. And again, I didn't apologise. I
don't apologise. As long as you're not directly causing anyone to suffer, I don't see the fucking need in apologising. Like saying an opinion should never ever have the reaction of I want you to apologize. You can thinking whatever you want to think. It's a fucking human right. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. So regarding the likes of LGBT, so first of all, just touching on the LGBT brand, right?
Yeah.
As a commercial entity, I have actively been vocal against and will continue to be vocal against the promotion of Pride events.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Now, first of all, what I want to say is that I find it completely unreasonable. Right? Now, I am against Pride events as a whole.
Right.
I can somewhat understand why they would take place to some degree. But what I will say, first of all, is that I'm completely opposed to this notion that Pride events ought to take place year-round, despite June being clearly, historically, and worldwide recognised as Pride Month. That's what it's marketed as, and that's what it's marketed for.
My birthday is in June. Sorry, just to cut you off like a quick second. My birthday is in June, and like every time my birthday rolls around, it's like people are like, "Oh, you're born in fucking Pride Month." I'm just like, "Oh, right, you don't have to remind me."
Yeah, well, I think an entire month for just LGBT is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But here's what I want to just really get into. So, look, at the end of the day, if you really want to have Pride Month, now I don't think that Pride should be a thing, period. And I'll get into that in a moment. But if you really want to have Pride Month, then okay, fair enough. But if that's the case, why have Pride Month events and market Pride all throughout the rest of the year anyway? That defeats the whole purpose of Pride Month. And I saw Pride marketed demonstrations going on in my college a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke out against it, absolutely. Yeah. I don't care that I'm doing a presidential election. I don't care if that's going to lose me votes. Okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because here's the way I see it, and to me it's as simple and logical as this. June is Pride Month, so have the Pride events in June. If you're going to just have Pride events the entire rest of the year anyway, that completely defeats the purpose of Pride Month. So either get rid of Pride Month, or keep the Pride events contained to June, which is Pride Month, and stop shoving it down everybody's throats and putting it in front of my face.
No pun intended. No pun intended. Sorry. Yeah, go on.
And as to why I think that Pride events shouldn't be a thing, period, eventually, well, to be quite frank, I don't think being homosexual or transsexual or bisexual is anything to be proud of. And neither is being heterosexual.
Yeah.
Sexuality to me, personally, right? Jake Fitzsimons, I'm not going to speak on behalf of other people. I know a lot of other people in the nationalist community are deeply Catholic. There's a heavy overlap there.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten flack from my own followers for saying this. So be it. I don't care. To me, personally, somebody's sexuality or sexual orientation matters much to me as their eye colour. Somebody being gay, somebody being lesbian, somebody being straight matters as much. To me, it's the exact same as one person's eyes being blue, another person's being brown, another person being green. I don't think about it. I don't care. And when it comes to me, myself personally, I don't think of my sexuality in any way, shape or form when I'm thinking about who Jake Fitzsimons is as a person.
Yep.
Who am I? To me, sexuality doesn't even begin to enter my head in terms of what my identity is. It just doesn't matter to me. So I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of being made to talk about it and being forced to be aware of it, because it just doesn't matter to me. And that leads on to my second reason why Pride Month should be banned, or at the very least discontinued. Because to me, what is the actual overall goal of the LGBT?
They say the overall goal is to make people aware that it's okay to be, well, what
Right,
LGBT stands for, being it lesbian,
right,
gay,
right. I
bisexual.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't disagree very much with that assertion. I would differ slightly. My opinion is that the overall long-term eventual end goal of the LGBT movement is to completely normalize people of different sexual orientations to the point where it's not even a matter of thought or focus in society.
Okay.
That's what the point should be.
Yeah.
And I believe that having LGBT as a branded entity that is distinctly promoted actually goes against that overall agenda.
Yeah.
Because if people see this group of individuals being associated and associating themselves with this flag, with this particular culture, with
Yeah.
this particular cultural stereotypes,
Yeah.
it reinforces that subliminal idea in people's heads of these types of people being some sort of other.
Yeah.
They have their own flag, they have their own culture, they have their own sort of way of galvanizing and fraternizing. If you have this whole subsect of people, the LGBT, who have their own movement and entity that is constantly promoted, people are always going to be reminded that the LGBT is a thing to be conscious of. It's
Yeah.
going to work against the idea of completely normalizing people of different orientations to the point where they're not even a matter of thought in people's heads. They're
Yeah.
not even
No,
properly recognized.
Mm.
They're not even properly sort of observed or interpreted as being different.
Okay.
But as long as you have that flag and you have these people actively talking about their sexual orientation all
Yeah.
the time as if it's so much of their personality, making it their whole personality,
Yeah.
it's going to always make people view you as an other, as distinct. It's going to draw attention. I'm against LGBT parades. I'm against the idea of coming out. I'm against the idea of all of that. And I also, finally, as a nationalist, dislike movements like the LGBT because
Yeah.
I believe it creates a subconscious feeling of belonging to a superseding entity. Right? If you're a member of the LGBT,
Yeah.
you have your own flag, you
Yeah.
have your own shared culture that is transcendent outside of any country's border.
Yeah.
People who are LGBT, they could be from China, or they could be from Ireland, or they could be from Mexico. They could be completely different people in terms of culture, in terms of life circumstances, in terms of religion, in terms of language, everything. But they share being members of the LGBT. That's what they have in common. That's what makes them them. That's what makes them together. That's what separates them from everyone else in the outside world.
Yeah.
And it creates a culture and a mentality of loyalty. I believe that people in the LGBT identify as LGBT for the most part. They identify as LGBT above everything else because that's where they feel their most belonging. That's where they feel the most emotional connection through that shared culture, through that shared identity. And I believe it creates a loyalty that is superseding to any border of the world, which as a nationalist is absolutely intolerable, unacceptable. It's anti-nationalist.
It's anti-nationalist.
People a an entity or an idea to be loyal to above their country, above anything else in their life. And I think that's unhealthy for the integrity and congruence of a nation state and a fully functional society. In terms of people in the movement, gay, lesbian, transgender people, I don't have any problem with any of those. Do whatever you want with your life, be whoever you want to be. But I think for a number of reasons that I have just articulated, the idea of LGBT as an entity, as a brand, not the people in it, but LGBT itself, I think it's problematic. And in my opinion, it's got to go.
Okay. 5 fucking clip farms. Just like chopping them up right there. Okay. Look.
You okay if I go get another drink real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Take your time. Take your time, brother. Oh man, honestly, it's been, folks. It's been it's going to be some podcast, man. Honestly, like I said, don't take any offense to what this man is saying. Okay, don't take any offense to what I'm saying. Like, everyone's allowed an opinion, and that's kind of the whole ethos really behind this, is that, well, anyone can speak and and everyone should sort of, be allowed to speak. So don't ever, feel as though I'm being, I'm trying to, have a problem with somebody by bringing a man like Jake or bringing somebody else on the show. By the way, just for anybody who, does accuse me of, like pandering to far right people or pandering to whatever the far left or whatever you think of me politically. Not that I really care anyway, but whatever you do think of me, I will bring any guest on this. If somebody from the opposing party of Jake here would like to come on, that's also fine. If there's an imam in my area, like he's my good mate. He leads our prayer every Friday. I was trying to get him on this, and I'm gonna actively try and ask him to be on the show here as well.
I think it would be pretty good content if you could get somebody on as different from me as possible.
Yeah, literally. It's just to show.
Me and them can debate. I'm all for that.
Yeah. It's like I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a problem with really with anybody. Obviously, debates aren't really like what the pod is there for. But obviously, the whole point is if we could get somebody who's, let's say, like the polar opposite to you, I don't mind listening to their view either, because everyone's allowed to fucking.
Yeah, well, you're still an upstart. Like, this is a pretty new thing. And
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe you can work your way up to that.
Yeah, eventually at some.
As much exposure as I can,
Yeah.
A decent enough following. I'll be posting this everywhere.
Of course. Especially all the key moments. Now back to the whole community issue with the LGBT. The one thing that I am quite against, okay, is this being endorsed on kids. Okay, I believe it's indoctrination, not education. And like, the reason why I say that is because it's coming to the point where this shit is in primary schools. I don't see what the need for you to push your sexual orientation on primary school kids. Like, that's just weird to me, man. Like, what do you need to do that for? Like, I'm sorry, I will never, and I fucking have never understood why that's a thing, so.
No, I agree. I think that a lot of people on the more liberal and leftist side can be very dismissive of the problematic and, at the very least, pointless nature of it all.
Yeah.
It's quite nebulous.
Yep.
Because, a lot of them say, oh, well, we just want people of different orientations to be accepted and seen as normal.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. I've seen secondary schools and even primary schools specifically, and I've had liberals and leftists deny this, say it's not happening. They specifically say in their pamphlets or posters or whatever for events, I literally saw this written. It said, people of different orientations are not only to be accepted, but celebrated. That's the issue that I take. Why are you putting so much emphasis on them? Like
I agree.
Gay, trans, like anything, right?
Yeah.
Anything. Just your sexuality period is nothing.
It's private. It's nothing to do with anyone else.
It's not something you decide. I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's nothing to be proud of. So why are we celebrating you for being attracted to another man if you're a man? Like, it's just kind of ridiculous. And my stance towards transgender people in particular, the reason I want to talk about transgender people is because, let's be real, that's the vast majority of people's issue. The vast majority of people who take issue with LGBT is because of the T. It's because of the transgender, which is the reason that you see a lot of bisexual and gay people who are part of the LGBT movement.
LGBTQ plus I. Get it right.
Yeah. They say whatever. They say you see a lot of them pushing back against the transgender element of it. They say, I'm just LGB. I'm just
LGB without the T.
But that's what a lot of them do. I know some people who they don't put the rainbow flag in their bio, right? They just have the Irish flag, so you wouldn't know that they're homosexuals or members of the LGBT.
Not that we need to know that anyway, but yeah.
To begin with, you wouldn't know it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of them have LGB, then the emoji, the scissor emoji, and then the T. Like, they don't want that's a sign they don't support. Like, TERF is a thing, trans exclusion, radical feminists. Like, you've got people in the LGBT and the feminist movement disassociating themselves away from the transgender movement. Yeah. Whereas that doesn't happen the opposite way around. And the reason is because a lot of them recognise the fact that the normal public and the right-wingers take most of the issue with transgender people, not the rest. And ask people, I'm telling you this, whether they're Christian or whether they're secular, most right-wingers who are sceptical or criticising of or antagonistic towards the LGBT, the biggest issue they have is with transgenders. If it wasn't for the transgender and the non-binary stuff, they wouldn't care. It's not lesbians and gays or bisexuals they care about, for the most part. It's the transgenders. And my policy towards transgenders has always been very simple and very consistent. So, first of all, I recognise gender dysphoria as a legitimate mental illness.
Of course it is.
And I recognise transgenderism as a legitimate form of procedure that one can be subject to in order to alleviate the symptoms of gender dysphoria. And so therefore I support the availability of procedures and surgical methods to allow people to physically modify their body to alleviate the symptoms of the mental illness that is gender dysphoria. I don't take issue with transgenderism as a concept and as an applied practice existing. My 3 conditions for transgenders is this. First of all, keep the ideology away from children.
Please.
Second of all, be 18 years old before being allowed to undergo any procedures, whether it be medicinal, whether it be pharmaceutical, or whether it be physical and surgical. No puberty blockers, and be a legal adult before you can
make those decisions.
Any procedure whatsoever. And then the third condition I have is fully self-fund all of your procedures. No taxpayer money should be used.
Do not rely on the state for this shit. Please.
That's it. I don't have a problem with transgender people.
Yeah.
Just those 3 conditions. Keep it away from children, be a legal adult, and self-fund or get the funding from associated charities or third-party donors. No public taxpayer expenditure. Those are my 3 conditions. And I think that that's fair.
Okay, I cannot disagree with a word of what you said. I was going to add to that, alright, brother, and I was going to say that I am very against... There's this whole kind of thing where a lot of teenagers, which I would regard as children because they are fucking children, like a 13 or a 15-year-old is just a child. That's what they are, sorry. That's just me kind of telling you as it is, being a bit blunt. But they want to get the surgery done where they take whatever, all these hormone blockers, they get surgically, the procedures done on them, and they become the opposite gender, and they want to identify as a different name. I'm not for teenagers getting the surgery. I know there was some like debate about this a while ago. Is if teenagers, not necessarily younger than like 13, but about 13 to like 17-year-olds, I believe it was, if they should be allowed to do this procedure or not. And I was saying no, like fuck no. That's a child.
It's the 3 Ds: degenerate, disgusting, and disgraceful. I do not encourage that. I actively discourage it, and I will always actively oppose and attack anyone who promotes that. I think it's absolutely...
I won't attack anyone. I'm not gonna look. Sorry, I'm not gonna be around and say, "Oh, I hate everyone." I don't hate anyone. People that are watching this need to know a lot of what I do is kind of satirical in a way, and it's also informative. But in my heart, I hold no hate towards anyone.
Well, I don't mean physically attack. To be
yeah, of course.
I mean actively go for in terms of a commentary.
Yeah. Which is you're right.
But another thing I'll say is, look. If you're truly suffering gender dysphoria and you truly want to change your sex, physical appearance-wise, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm willing to call you, say if you're a man who wants to physically transform into a woman, I'm willing to call you she, right?
I'm not. Now, I'm just being honest.
I'm going to call you a woman if I'm with someone in public and says, who is that? I'm going to call you a trans woman. I'm not going to call you a woman. I'm going to call you a trans woman. Right?
Yeah.
But like I'm willing to call you she. I'm willing to call you by your new name, but only if you actually commit to getting the physical procedure done. These people who are literally just a man saying that they're trans because they feel trans, because they feel like they're a woman, when they've had no actual physical procedures done, I don't know. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a man and you want me to call you she and call you by your new woman name, you've got to actually commit, motherfucker. You've got to actually get.
Okay.
No, you've
Yeah.
got to. No, you've got to. If you actually like, even if I don't necessarily still feel comfortable with it, if you're committed enough,
Yeah.
if you're actually about that life enough to actually get your penis removed, then okay, respect. Then I'll call you she. If you've got your penis removed and you're actually on medication to grow breasts and you actually physically resemble a woman, okay, I'll call you she. I'll call you Stephanie when you used to be Stephen. But if you're literally just a man who calls himself trans just because he feels like a woman on the inside and you've had no...
You need help, brother, like, yeah.
No, I'm not going to call you she then. Absolutely not.
My fix for this, look, somebody goes to me, they go, look, what would you rather them do if they didn't change gender and they feel this way? I would say seek help. I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean, look, talk about it with a therapist. I think there's a study done on this, actually, that a lot of these people that want to change gender, it's usually because they've either had a very weird upbringing in terms of how their peers, their family, their siblings, their parents have treated them, or on the contrary, like, they haven't really had any of that present in their life. They haven't really been around their family. A lot of these people might not know who a lot of their family members are, and therefore they feel disconnected from the world, and they think, I want to be so and so. My advice to everyone is just get help. Talk to someone, man. Maybe you might just change your mind. You might not, but you might.
Well, a lot of it is indoctrination from authority-like figures that are adjacent to the parents in the household, such as teachers, such as doctors, such as
lawyers, etc.
Yeah, like a lot, and this has happened. Again, this is something that leftists and liberals say, "Oh, that doesn't happen. That's a myth." No, it absolutely does happen.
It does.
Okay, there have been numerous reports in other countries, certainly, perhaps even in Ireland, of teachers hearing a student say, "Oh, well, sometimes I feel like parts of my personality or my character are more typically affiliated with the opposite gender," and straight away they say, "You're trans. You're trans, you should go seek surgery." And this has led, in some cases, to some kids actually getting the physical procedures initiated, such as having their breasts removed or starting puberty blockers. That has happened.
Yeah, I don't deny it.
I won't back down to anyone trying to gaslight me into thinking it hasn't. It absolutely has. And I think that's a huge issue of it as well, is this weird sort of, because it's kind of become cool, right? I mean, you see this with neurodivergent people as well, the way that almost every other person is neurodivergent nowadays. Is that everybody kind of almost wants to be different or unique in some way.
It's okay to just be normal, guys. It's not
inclination. This forced inclination to belong to some sort of outsider group in order to feel different. Because it has this weird quasi-association of making your life more valuable or more interesting if you're different, when it really doesn't, because to me it's not a relevant part of your character, and it's a disgusting message to send to young impressionable people. I think we need to re-normalize, because it used to be normalized and then it became what it is today, this absolute social disaster. We need to normalize again some men just being kind of feminine and some women just being kind of masculine. Some men
having high testosterone, some men having low testosterone, because that's just what it is.
To me, it's not even a testosterone issue. It's not even a testosterone issue. Some people just have quirky personalities. Some women are tomboys. Some men are kind of feminine. Okay, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're trans. It just means that you're a woman who has some masculine or typically masculine traits, or vice versa. Take myself, for example. I don't have a super deep voice. I don't drink beer or Guinness when I'm out. I drink drinks like this, or the one I had before, cocktails, the fruity drinks with the sexy names. Those are the ones that I like. Those are the drinks that I like. I don't play sports. I like to paint. I like to use skincare products.
That doesn't make you a tranny. It just means you're a man with different interests.
At the same time, I also work out all the time. I'm in the army.
You're a big fan of MMA, right?
Yeah.
I am too.
I've got plenty of stereotypical masculine traits and elements in my character too. I
Okay.
think that being self-secure as a man in your masculinity is being willing to embrace more feminine traits and accept the fact that you're atypical in some ways. To me, the most interesting men and the best men in terms of character are a little feminine in some ways. Because I think
Okay.
it's a healthy thing to be able to relate to the opposite sex more. I think it's
Yeah,
healthy for life
it makes you kind of more
dynamic.
intertwined. You get to know
Yeah.
the male gender counterpart, etc. That's no problem. Listen, what we're gonna do, okay? We're gonna have like a little short 10-minute intermission. I usually do this on my podcast. We have a little intermission. I'm gonna what's gonna happen is basically gonna go to our next topic after we're done. I'm gonna just kind of refresh as well, recharge, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about Ireland. Protests that are happening currently at the moment, be it in like Dublin, Sligo, the leaders of these protests. We're going to talk about religion as well, and yeah, we're just going to talk about what's in the future for Jake Fitzsimons, and we'll call it at that. But before we get to that, okay, before we get to that, I'm just going to take a bit of an intermission here, and we should be good to go. Is that okay?
Cool.
Cool. Okay, so obviously, there was a lot we had to discuss, you know. There was a particular figure that I wanted to talk about in the nationalistic movement, okay? Just coming back from our little intermission here now. And one of the figures that I actually don't like, personally, in the Irish Nationalist movement is a guy named Niall McConnell, okay? This guy has been a little bit, vulgar, I guess is the word. Obviously, he's very, he's a big believer in what he says. He is like very much, you know, not willing to listen to an opposing party because I've tried to talk to him on many times, and Niall actually blocked me himself. So I was going to ask yourself here, Jake, do you have any associations with Niall McConnell? And if so, tell me a little bit about it.
I do, yeah. I'm well affiliated with Niall. We've met a few times.
Okay.
And he regularly reposts my content.
Okay.
We met first at a demonstration that he attended in Sligo. That was a big
That's my hometown.
protest.
Big up Sligo, man.
And I gave a speech at that event, and he recorded it. I gave multiple speeches at that event, actually. One while marching and one at the square. And then we met for a second time in Newry, about couple weeks to a month later in
Okay.
September last year.
Yeah.
He was one of the speakers and one of the videographers of the Locals First initiative and local council
Yeah.
public meeting in Newry that I attended.
Okay.
And then we met for a third time in the later stage of last year in Oldcastle in my county in Meath. So I've been an avid supporter of Oldcastle Says No, because I believe that if one village falls, yours could be next, and so it is imperative for all of the villages in Meath, which as a county so far, especially my area, has been pretty fortunate so far with the lack of asylum seeking accommodation provided and the lack of refugees present. But they came very close to getting an iPass established in Oldcastle. And so
Okay.
I'm a big supporter of Anne-Marie Smith and Oldcastle Says No. And Niall was at that event as well. And so that especially was something that I'm very appreciative for towards Niall, for coming from Donegal to Meath, so far away, to show support and help us out. In my own home county, it meant a lot. So I've got a lot of love and a lot of respect and a lot of appreciation for Niall. And I think he does a lot of great work in the movement. That being said, yeah, I do recognise that he has a flaw or two, perhaps, that I can definitely understand some people taking issue with. He has been subject of criticism for not particularly being very optics sensitive when it comes to the way he words certain statements in his videos or the way he approaches sort of public interactions. He can come across as a bit too antagonistic, a bit too
Very.
of an agitator,
Yeah.
rather than somebody trying to more articulately get a point across. That is something that I have heard people say about him,
Yeah.
and I can understand that to a degree. Very, very few people can claim to be anywhere near perfect. Oh, he also is a sheep farmer, I believe. He's a family man. He has a whole family and runs his own business, so it takes a lot of effort for him to do what he does so much on the side. So that's to be commended as well. But I understand some complaints that people would have about him. He also has a tendency to not properly credit people when using their content. Like, I really feel like it would be very, very easy, surely, to just add my name or social media handle
Yeah.
onto a clip of me speaking. But instead, he'll just say something like "young Irishman," even though he knows who I am. He
Yeah.
knows me.
Do you think it's
He
out of
knows Jake.
spite that he does that, or is it out of some malice intent? Do you reckon, or like?
I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't really want to throw too many accusations towards him. I mean, I like Niall overall. I think positively of him. But I just can't see why he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, emotionally speaking, like, it's so easy to just say somebody's name or somebody's handle in a post or tag them in it. So some people have said to me that they think he's selfish and a bit of a grifter. He doesn't want to share views and exposure. To me, I don't really want to believe that, because it's like there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room for multiple icons or multiple influential figures. He has a decent following by himself. He's one of the largest in the movement, especially in terms of people who actually attend the protests, who aren't pretty much just online only. So I kind of feel like, rationally speaking, he wouldn't have a reason to bug exposure
Yeah.
or attention. I mean, part of it could just be out of ignorance or a bit of lack of social awareness.
Yeah.
I find it a bit kind of bizarre, quite frankly. I don't know what to make of it. But in the grand scheme of things, like, I still would have mostly positive things to say about Niall. I think highly of him, and I'm very appreciative
Okay.
of him for the work he does. I can understand, though, and some people have said it to me. So, like, a good few people have said it to me that he's rubbed them the wrong way, and I can understand that. And on a personal level, he does have maybe a flaw or two,
Yeah.
but I've got a lot of respect for him as a nationalist figure and for what he does, and I think he plays a pivotal role in the movement. And I really respect him in particular for how he stuck it on Pierce Doherty.
Okay. Well, look.
I
Here's
think
where we're gonna have to agree or disagree. Me, I can tell you what I think of him. I can tell you my personal experience with the guy from the very little interaction that I've had, but from the experience also, I don't like the guy one bit, man. I think he's very um he has an ego on him. First of all, you're right. He's very socially unaware. Okay, he doesn't know how to conduct himself. His conduction is very poor, and not only that, he's very like he's very, I guess, well, I wouldn't say uneducated in terms of everything, because he does bring up points that are factually correct, but at the same time he tries to twist certain things into making it seem as though, well, like, it's all one sided when there's a little bit of, like, gray areas in certain things that he says. I asked the guy to publicly speak to me, and like I have a very I have a very kind of peaceful way of conducting myself. So let's say if I don't agree with somebody on something, right? Like, I'm sure there's issues that me and you don't agree on. We must not agree on everything. We're only humans, end of the day, right? But when I messaged Niall, I asked the guy. I said, look, I'm an immigrant. I watched a lot of your videos. I believe you do have some of the wrong end of the stick when it comes to what you do in immigration. Can we have a little chat about it sometime, be it in Letterkenny or in Sligo? Because I know he's come down to this area quite a bit. Right? Now, Niall here, and by the way, guys, if this was a troll account, that's the only justification I have for this, being it as if this was not Niall McConnell and this was somebody else. But the following looked pretty big on Facebook, and it looked like that it was his account. But if I have it wrong and it wasn't, well, that's a different issue. But what I'm going to say is the account that I messaged, right, with Niall McConnell's videos on it, that was claiming to be him, just blocked me. I just asked for a peaceful chat, and what appeared to be Niall McConnell, again, I'm not 100% sure that it was him, but I'm like 90% sure it was him. They just blocked me. They didn't want to chat about anything. They didn't want to they didn't want to have a civil discussion. It was very like my way or the highway, and that's kind of like what annoys me a little bit about a little bit about what he's kind of done there, because he's making it seem as if I'm the problem when I was the one just kind of trying to bring peace to the whole situation.
Well, first of all, I certainly don't condone that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to hear of your experience.
Yeah.
I tend to be very, very open-minded and quite tolerant in terms of people having disagreements with me online.
Mm-hmm.
The only people I'll block are people who are just being abusive, or people who are clearly not engaging in bad faith, in good faith.
Yeah.
They're just looking to agitate or waste time, or they're just not engaging properly in a
civil discussion.
Yeah, with an attitude of wanting to get an understanding or exchange intellectual dialogue. They're just being annoying, they're being abusive, they're being
being a troll. They're just kind of saying things for the sake of saying it.
People who are just like spamming under all of your posts.
Yeah.
Those are the only people who block. Well, unionists as well. If I find out you're a unionist, I'll block you. So unionists and people who are just not interacting in good faith or being harassing or abusive. Other than that, I'm pretty tolerant. It would take a lot for me to block someone, so I don't condone that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah.
One criticism that I actually will personally launch against Niall, and Niall, if you see this, don't take it too personally, alright? Don't,
But maybe learn from it, brother, because,
I do still, I respect Niall a lot, and I'm very appreciative of him. But with all due respect, I will say this: Niall is a staunch Catholic, right? That in and of itself is whatever. I don't take issue with that. But he is quite biased towards Catholics for that reason. And I know that for a fact because late last year, I interviewed the hunger strikers outside Leinster House. And these people as children were sexually abused in reformatory schools that were overseen by the Catholic Church. And the interviews did very well, great reception, great views, great likes. It got a lot of exposure, and it got a lot of attention, and it got a lot of praise. But Niall wouldn't repost it. He wouldn't upload the videos.
He wouldn't highlight it.
Okay. Some of the content.
Yeah.
And the reason he wouldn't, I was told this by a woman who works for him, who goes to events and films stuff for him. He told me that Niall wouldn't upload those videos because they were talking bad of the Catholic Church.
Okay.
These were people who were sexually abused as children. These are people who were abandoned and neglected by the state, and then given the runaround, completely disrespected in terms of compensation.
Yeah.
They were raped. They were molested as children.
Yeah.
By institutions overseen by the Catholic Church. That's true. And Niall wouldn't upload videos. He wouldn't share their content, share their stories, because they were saying true things about the Catholic Church. And to me, being willing to just completely dismiss and ignore the wrongdoings of the Catholic Church just because you're a Catholic, I really disapproved of that. It upset me, and one of the reasons I'm against institutional religion. I'm not a Catholic. I'm not even a Christian. But I still have respect for Christian and Catholic faith and culture. But I'm against institutional religion. I'm against the Catholic Church, and part of that is for that reason, because I think that it inherently influences and creates biases in loyal individuals and parties connected to it. And I think that having institutional religions being given a say over state affairs is disastrous. I think it's never to be taken place in a proper civilized society. So that would be my personal biggest. I wouldn't even say corrupt. Like, I don't hold it against them. Like, I don't really like. I've moved on from it.
Was this long ago? How long ago was this that this happened?
That's one nitpick criticism I would have personally against Niall.
Did this happen like a long time ago? What you were saying when he came down to the
it was late last year. It was late
last year. Okay.
I never said it then. This is the first time I'm speaking about
it.
Well,
he'll hear about it. I'm sure. Look, I'm sure
that sit wrong with me.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, as I said previously, I've heard other negative things about Niall that I would sympathise with from other people. That's the only criticism that I personally would have against him.
Yeah.
think he was wrong for that.
Okay.
And I really, really reject Christian nationalism. I think there's a difference between being an Irish nationalist and a Christian nationalist who's Irish. Big difference.
Yeah, look.
I'm no fan of Christian nationalism, and I'm no ally of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, look. My whole thing is this: when it comes to nationalism, I don't understand why. I don't understand why they make it seem like any nationalist is a Christian nationalist or whatever. Let's not act, first of all, like these nationalists are not in like other countries as well. There's many of them in like India, Pakistan, Somalia. There's probably loads of people that would identify their religion with their nation. I don't really understand that either. For me, look, the reason why I don't really associate with any particular party, like I don't call myself a nationalist or I don't call myself a socialist or whatever with the ist really, is because I actually am someone that holds my religion quite dear to me, which is Islam, right? Alhamdulillah for that. But I would never I would never associate my religion with the country because I'm a believer in the fact that religion is broad. Like for example, look, your family is mainly Catholic, right? Your parents, that is.
Well, I mean, most Irish people are.
Okay, well,
Catholic.
yeah.
Neither of my parents would be religious.
Okay, well,
I received Catholic confirmation and all of that, but
yeah. Well,
I didn't grow up in a religious household.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's like my thing is the religion is for everybody. It's to unite the world, really. It's like you'll find Catholics in the Philippines. You'll find them in England. You'll find them in Ireland. You'll find them in like America. You'll find them everywhere. My point being is I don't understand why these type of nationalists, be it like McConnell or whoever, they like associating the word Christian with the word nationalist. It's like me associating water with the iPhone. It's like what the fuck, respectfully, does one have to do with the other? I'm not saying that you can't be Irish and a Catholic. Of course you can. What I'm just trying to say is it's not exclusive to Irish people, right?
That's something that I would agree with you on.
Yeah.
I think that as much as I said earlier, and I stand by what I said earlier, that Christian culture is overall quite good,
Yeah.
and to be embraced in aspects. I think that institutional religion as a whole is bad. I don't agree with any institutional religion.
Right.
To me, the Catholic Church having say over our state is not much more preferential
Yep.
than Sharia Islam.
Okay.
Yeah. So I personally wouldn't have much patience for the Catholic Church. And to me, Catholic Church having a say over our government isn't a whole lot better than if we were to be taken over by Sharia Islam.
Okay.
To me, secularism is the only true nationalist perspective.
Yeah.
I think that see, with religious institutes, you just have such a beholdenment to a higher power that isn't the state. And this is where I take some issue with the likes of Nick Fuentes.
Yep.
Or Charlie Kerr. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
So Nick Fuentes is a staunch Catholic and believes that the United States, ideally, if it were up to him, would be run under Catholic doctrine. But to me, that goes against what Nick Fuentes claims to be about, which is complete American sovereignty and American first. Because if you believe in American society being run off of Catholic doctrine, that means being answerable to Rome. Yeah. But that's not true sovereignty. You're still answerable to a foreign power. That's not a whole lot better than Jews who talk about the American government being sort of
run by them, because it is
obligated to be loyal to Israel.
They are, and anyone who's denying that is like look. Obviously, this is a bit of a different issue. We'll talk about this one in a minute, but just kind of to touch on it briefly. Well, it's true. Like America is run by Zionist Jews. It is. I'm not saying all Jews are bad people. I've never said that. But it's run by the ones that are like, thinking that they own the world, and that's just what it is. And really and truly, look, if you're putting a religion, right, like let's say in charge of your country in terms of, like, obviously Ireland was run under the Catholic Church for quite a number of years, and basically, if you're doing that, that's taking away from people's right to, learn about religion for themselves and think about it for themselves, if they're religious or not, because end of the day, you can't force a religion upon anyone in the first place. It goes against the doctrine. Like, I'm not sure really about how it works in Catholicism, but I know about how it works in Islam, and a lot of people have this very, very twisted, right? They say, oh, you Muslims, you radicals, da 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 da. But if you look at the teachings of the Quran, the Hadith, etc., it specifically says you can't force anyone into this. It's done through complete choice. Does that make sense?
It does. And I appreciate you as a Muslim for recognizing that.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of radical Islamists that destroy the perception of Islam.
Yeah.
The mainstream public to Westerners.
Yeah.
What I'll say is this, and this is something I think you'll find interesting and agree with.
Okay.
A lot of Irish nationalists who are Christian inclined will say that Islam should not be welcome in Ireland because its components are culturally incompatible with Irish society.
Yeah.
And then those same candidates or activists will say that they want gay marriage banned, abortion banned, that women shouldn't work, etc. Those are all the same things that radical Muslims say. So I think it's quite laughable. A lot of staunch Christians will say that Islam is incompatible with Ireland, and yet spout the same policy as radical Muslims.
Yeah, they're just on the same side. They're just radical Christians. That's all they are.
And it has no appeal to young people.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this right now. Those people are in a bubble.
Yeah.
As a young person who goes to college, I'm telling you right now, outside of that bubble, if you want to get through the young people, I'm telling you right now, as a student activist, you're not going to get through the young people, especially women my age, with that talk. We've moved past that. I know there's a bit of a resurgence in spirituality now, but you're not going to get through to anyone or the young vote talking about being anti-abortion or anti-gay marriage. It's just nonsense in regards to optics and electoral appeal.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's laughable how they say they're against Islam because it's incompatible with Irish culture, and yet they spout the same policy as Muslims, as radical Muslims, as Sharia Muslims.
Yeah.
I think it's laughable. Yeah. But to me, and I'll also say this, and this is this is going to piss a lot of people off.
Okay.
But I'm going to say it, and I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again on perhaps a larger exposure platform, because the last time I said it, I didn't have as many followers. Okay. Whether people like this or not, Christianity is a British cultural introduction into Ireland. Christianity arrived in this island via a British man, and it was explored and embraced throughout the Irish island by way of encouragement by the British establishment. Right? Christianity arrived onto this island via British cultural imposition. We had our own religion and we had our own culture revolved around that religion. We had our own gods, we had our own stories regarding the creation of our world and our land and our people beforehand. My personal favourite is Sir Nunos, the deer god. He's a Celtic pagan god who also has strong connections to French subsects of Gaelic paganism. And I just think that that's a very, very sore spot that a lot of nationalists who are more religiously inclined towards on the right wing, they flinch at, and they're not willing to accept. They cover their ears and cover their eyes at that. But it's true. Christianity, whether you like it or not, now I'm not saying this to invalidate Christianity. Maybe the Christian God is real. I'm not necessarily a very big believer. I'm open-minded, but I'm not a big believer. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. Maybe God is real, and maybe it's the Christian God. And I'm not invalidating any sects or denominations of Christianity. But the fact, whether you like it or not, the fact is that Christianity is a British cultural element imposition onto Ireland. And so I personally think that Irish paganism and elements of appeal,
Yeah.
an aspect of merit should be better encouraged by Irish people and by Irish nationalists and practiced by Irish nationalists in regards to the pagan side of our history. I personally would be a proponent of that to an extent, and I just think it's such a rich part of our history. Irish paganism, the Irish pantheon folklore. Not a lot of people know about it, not a lot of people learn about it. I think it's really interesting, and I'd be quite a big fan and nerd regarding that stuff too. I love Irish mythology. I love the Irish pantheon of gods to talk about. At the end of the day, though, it is a fact, whether you like it or not, whether you're going to get annoyed by it or not. The fact is that Christianity is an element of British occupation and British enforcement of cultural thinking onto Ireland. And so, in my view, true nationalism, this is the way I look at it, true nationalism has to be secular. Because, or at least secular as we commonly interpret that meaning as, because to me, as an Irish nationalist, I view Ireland itself as an entity. I view Ireland as a deity. I truly believe that Ireland, the land itself, the island, has a spirit, has a soul, and that's what I worship. That's what I consider myself to be a part of. I am the man-made flesh part of that spirit.
Okay, sorry, we were just having a bit of a technical error there. If you could just repeat like the last little part there. What did you say again? You were talking a bit about how Christianity spread from the British.
Yeah, that just goes for any religion, period.
Yeah.
I don't believe its authority above the nation itself is to be respected.
Yeah.
As a true nationalist, as an ultra-nationalist, proud, self-proclaimed ultra-nationalist, I believe that the nation itself is a deity.
Yeah.
The country of Ireland, the island of Éire, is its own entity. It's its own deity. It has a spirit. It's what I'm a part of. It's what created me, and it's what I live for.
Yeah.
And I am the flesh incarnate of that spirit, and belonging and beholden to that land. My country is what I worship, what I live for, what gives me purpose, and I do not recognize any power other than that, whether it be Christianity. I don't recognize or accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. My Lord and Savior is my country. That's what I exist for. That's what I exist by. That's what I exist with.
Okay.
That's what I proudly worship till the end.
Okay. Well, see, here's where again we have a little bit of a difference, right? I'm actually a believer in like God first, then pretty much everything else. That's just the difference we have. The reason why I'll never call myself, give my complete loyalty to a certain place, is just because I am a believer that ultimately, God is what's controlling of that place, and it's what's controlling of the country, the land, be it wherever I am. But again, that's just where we agree to disagree. You said that you're not much of a believer in religion, but again, maybe like that's our little difference.
Obviously, you'd be an exception because
Yeah.
I know you, and I know you. I have a good basis knowledge of your character.
Yeah.
And I respect you, therefore, and I'm fond of you as a person.
Yeah.
You're an exception. But and there always will be exceptions. It's a case-by-case examination basis.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, Muslims like yourself
Yep.
are people who I would not allow to enter the country, because I don't believe that you should be entering foreigners into the country who believe that their religion goes above the state. Because if you don't respect the state that you live in as an immigrant, as the highest authority, to me, that causes problems and enhances the exposure for cultural clashes.
Okay.
If you think that there's some sort of power that you are more obligated to respect other than your country, I think that those are the type of immigrants we shouldn't have for that reason.
Okay.
Generally speaking, when it comes to Muslims.
Okay, well, here's where we can touch a little bit on that. Obviously, the likes of Niall McConnell has a very big problem with Islam. Clearly, I can tell by a lot of his content. Also,
yeah. I'd support, just to be clear for the record, because he may say this, I fully support and I'm behind and I'm willing to volunteer to help Niall McConnell's effort to prevent mosque construction and planning permission
Okay.
in Letterkenny.
Yeah.
I fully support him for that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be completely full stop against Islam presence whatsoever in Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, as extreme as he would be, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Okay. Here's the thing.
like I do object to mosques being built for the most part, but like I wouldn't be against having any Muslims in Ireland, which I feel like Niall McConnell supporters
Yeah.
would be more likely to say.
Why would you? Okay. Why would you object to mosques being built in Ireland? Tell me.
Well, because I think that it sends the wrong message. I think it sends the message of over embracement or
Yeah.
other completely adjacent cultures and derivative social behaviors. I don't want to over normalize Islam in Ireland. I
Okay.
don't have a problem with Muslims being present in Ireland,
Okay.
but I do think there should be quite a small amount.
Okay.
Now, if you're talking the big, now listen,
Yeah.
if you're talking the big settlements, like say Dublin City,
Yeah.
Cork City, Galway City,
Yeah.
big settlements with
Okay.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
You want to have one modest-sized mosque here or there for the Muslim community to congregate at. Okay, I'm alright with that. But it's in the smaller to medium-sized communities that I don't approve of.
Okay.
I just overall don't want to see too much of an over-normalization
Yeah.
of Muslim presence in Ireland.
Okay.
And I think that accommodating state bureaucratic and administrative resources to the construction of settlements that go towards embracing such endeavours, I think that does normalise Islamic presence in Ireland that I don't want to see too much of.
Okay.
Because when
Okay.
you have Islamic presence,
Mm.
you have the opportunity for radical Islamic presence.
But I would make the point on the contrary, right? That like be it with Islam or any other religion, right? Obviously, look, any believer of any religion, whatever Abrahamic religion you are, I'm not too sure about the other ones. They're kind of what they want is for the religion to grow. Okay, be it Catholicism, be it if you're a Protestant, their goal is for them. For obviously, well, they have their own goal, get to heaven, da da da. But at the same time, they want to see other people, like them. However, you made the point there that you don't want to see it grow because it's taking kind of away from the culture of Ireland. But my contrary would be the religion is never forced upon you anyway. It spreads organically. Like, for example, I made this point to Niall McConnell and he refused to kind of, acknowledge it, that any religion in the world, I'm just taking Islam because that's what we're talking about here, right? It spreads organically. No one dare ever force you to do it. And if they so dare, I would even say, look, yeah, get him away from here because you should not be enforcing your religion on anybody. You can't force anybody into the religion anyway. It goes against the doctrine. So my counter argument would be, how would Islam really kind of pose a threat if the main objective for it is to just spread naturally by people's own discretion? Does that make sense?
Well, my counter argument would be that natural sort of expansion is still bad.
How come?
I'll say this, right?
Yep.
So here's the thing. The amount of Muslims in Ireland between 2006 and 2026 has almost doubled.
Yep.
The average age of a Muslim woman having her first child is 26 compared to the current Irish state average of 37.
Yeah.
And Muslims are having more children than native Irish children.
Okay.
So, left to their own devices, left for things to naturally
Yeah.
continue,
Yep.
eventually you are going to see Muslim population grow at a more severe expeditionary rate compared to the native population.
Okay.
And I think it's in the decades' time, in multiple decades to come, that's when the problem will really emerge. And so I believe in nipping it in the bud as early as possible.
Okay.
So that's the reason I don't want to over normalize Islamic presence in Ireland too much, because
I
with that comes greater influx of more Muslims, and with that comes the greater expedited rate of native white Irish Catholics becoming a minority, which as early as the beginning of this century in the early 2000s, as soon as that, it was actually predicted to happen by 2050. And I could think right now it could even happen even earlier than that.
Yeah.
So I want to prevent that from happening, because I believe that Ireland ultimately is the homeland of the Irish people, and I believe that Irish people are a real race and are a real ethnicity, and ought to be respected and ever present as the dominant inhabitants of the island.
Okay, but to which again,
yourself, sir.
Okay, I'm the exception, guy. Look, to which I was going to say, you mentioned this whole thing. Okay, I hear this one a lot. Well, the Muslim people that come to this, country have a lot more kids and and the population outgrowing and all. My thing is, but the Irish people have the freedom to just have more kids anyway.
Oh no, I agree with you. I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that to a certain extent, you can't really blame Muslims for that.
Literally, you can't.
Having more children than natives, that's not their fault.
Yeah.
And I also don't particularly hold it against, I don't even hold it against asylum seekers or refugees for coming here. I don't hold it against other people for wanting a better life for themselves or their family.
Yeah.
Even if you do it illegally. And I'm saying that if I was in their position, I'd break the law. I'd break international law to protect my family. No real man wouldn't. No, but seriously, no real man wouldn't. I'd break the law to save the people who I love if I thought it was.
Of course, we all would. Let's not act like we wouldn't do that. I fucking would.
Come here. Listen, despite all of its faults and despite how much criticism the launch against it and the movement as a whole that I'm a member of launches against it, Ireland is still one of the best countries in the world. I fully believe that.
I do too.
Ireland's one of the best countries in the world.
Yeah.
So no wonder people want to come here. I view it as obviously a burden in some senses, but I ultimately view it as a huge compliment that we have such a migration crisis.
Yeah, people love the country. Yeah.
People want to come here because it's a great country. And I think that immigrants, and this is why I'm not against immigration as a whole, immigrants have a special relationship with the country that ultimately, while still inferior to natives, natives can't offer that same special relationship, because to be an immigrant, to look at a country and choose to make it your home, is something that a native can't say. So I think it offers a special relationship and a special dynamic that's to be appreciated in an examination. I don't hold it against people for coming here or wanting a better life.
Yeah. Okay, so we were just talking a little bit about, again, the country and why it's such an amazing country, basically, to be in. That's why all the refugees want to come here, and anybody would, like we were discussing, any person would kind of want to come here just to escape.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hold it against people for wanting a better life for themselves or for coming here. The onus is on the government to protect the higher interests of the nation.
Of course.
For preserving demographic dominance and native prioritization, and quite frankly, just efficiency and stability regarding management of the populace and the resources available to efficiently do so.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody for coming here for a better life. Ireland is still one of the best countries in the world, hence why people want to come here, hence why our population is exploding. People want to come here because it's a great country, and I'm grateful to be able to say that. As much of a burden as migration absolutely is, and as unbearably frustrating as the burden can be regarding migration and the current crisis and dilemma that we're facing regarding it, ultimately it is still a compliment and something to be proud of that your country is so great that so many people want to come here. Nobody wants to come to a bad country. Nobody tries to come to a bad country.
Of course.
Ireland, despite its faults and despite its weaknesses that I, of all people, will be more than happy to point out, because I believe that loving your country is also being willing to say what's bad about it and try and fix it, as well as just praise the positives. But ultimately, Ireland is one of the best countries in the world, hence why people want to come here. So I don't fault people for coming here for wanting a better life. But here's the thing, Uzzi. With all due respect to you and your community, even though it's not your fault, doesn't mean that it's still not your problem. I believe that until we get the native population decline problem fixed, which I absolutely believe we can and will, until then, we need to take measures to preserve demographic dominance in the country, which
Yeah.
includes taking procedures and actions where we can to limit the further degradation of native dominance and upsetting of the native populace balance
Okay.
regarding foreigners. So I believe part of that is, yes, limiting immigration tightly,
If
particularly to Muslim
if
individuals.
if a foreigner, right? Like, okay, for example, my family are all foreigners. Okay, like they're all from South Asia.
Yeah, and I feel like that is something to make clear because some people may look at you and think that
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, guys,
you're not white,
yeah,
like ethnically.
I'm,
You're
I'm, yeah,
albino.
I'm albino. I'm not an ethnically
You're
Irish
not,
man.
yeah.
Although I do
Yeah, you're
sound
not.
it and I do look like
Some
it.
people, because that does change the dynamic of our conversation and the interpretation of the viewer. So just be
Yes,
clear,
yes.
you're not white.
I'm not white. Not racially anyway. Maybe by skin color, but not by race. Um. Anyway, my parents are both brown people. They're both in this country. My dad contributes to the economy. He's a doctor. He helps out people that are sick and are in need of help. Would you be against legal immigrants coming into this country?
No,
Okay.
I think that in practice, now depending on exactly the demographic makeup and the time frame in which it's performed and exercised, I think that legal migration can actually, in some way, be worse than illegal migration, or at the very least just as bad, because I still do believe in demographic dominance of the natives. It still
Okay.
depends on where you're coming from and depends on exactly how long you're staying, and it exactly depends on the time frame
Yeah.
quite precisely as well. But overall, look, broadly speaking, my stance can be summarized as if you being here makes the island of Ireland a better place than if you weren't here, you're welcome. If that's not the case, you're not. We can get
Okay.
into the specifics of what better entails, what counts as better, what do some people consider additions and net benefits that others don't. All of that gets complex and fun to delve into.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking, my policy is that if you make my country a better country, you're welcome here.
Okay. That's okay. So
And I don't have a problem necessarily with multiculturalism.
okay.
All right, I don't believe in pure monoculturalism.
Yeah.
I think that there is a place for cultural diversity,
Yeah.
but here's the thing: diversity, when I say it, means actual traditional interpretations of diversity,
Yeah.
not how the word has been perverted by modern and neoliberal means of enaction, right?
Yeah.
So when I say multiple cultures and cultural diversity, I mean smaller subcultures existing within contained pockets that are still overall belonging to generally well assimilated communities in a nation state that still has one overall predominant culture.
Okay.
I don't support multiculturalism in a competitive sense.
Yeah. Of
I
course.
don't support I don't support a nation state having multiple cultures competing to be the dominant culture, or being in the position where they could potentially rival each other, or position of de facto dominant culture.
Yeah.
I believe that will ultimately end in racial and ethnic conflict. So I support cultural diversity within reason.
Within reason. Okay.
I still believe every nation state should have a dominant culture
Of
and
their own.
dominant native populace
Of their own
advantage.
demographic of people. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
What I'll say is this, yeah. I can agree that that obviously loving your country is a good thing. Protecting your nation is a good thing. Obviously, I'll always put God above my nation. That's just me. That doesn't matter where I'm from. Ireland, Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan.
Yeah. To me, my nation is God, and that's something I just want to wrap up on that we were touching on earlier.
Yeah.
Like, as a staunch nationalist, I believe that the nation itself, the island of Éire, my country, Ireland, that's a deity in and of itself.
Okay.
That's an entity.
Okay.
It has its own spirit. That's what I'm beholden to. That's what I was created by. It's what I exist with. It's what I am, the flesh embodied part of. That's what I recognize as my highest power. I don't recognize or embrace Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, or any other religions, any other higher beings. Nothing comes equal to my country. My country is my Lord and Savior. My country is the entity that I worship and that I live for and that I live by and that I live with.
Yeah. Okay. No, well, so your form of worship is the land that you live on, your country. Okay. That's where we and obviously a few other people, even in your own party, will have a little bit of a agreement to disagree. So that's kind of what that is. Next topic I was going to talk to you about was, this is a bit kind of like, it's on an international level. Obviously, there's wars going on at the moment, Iran, but there's a very big war that was a bit previous to that, which was Israel-Palestine. When it comes to Irish nationalists, British nationalists, I kind of notice it's a mix of the two. You've got ones that basically would support Palestine, and then you've got ones that are very Israel pro as well. When it comes to nationalism, what's your take on this whole issue? Do you think the fault is of the Palestinians? Do you think the fault is of Israel, and why? And I'll also give my opinion.
So, people ask me if I think that Palestine has a right to exist, if I think Israel has a right to exist. I'm a social Darwinist.
Okay.
I believe that all people have a right to attempt to exist. I believe that both Israel and Palestine have a right to attempt to exist. Now, as to whose attempt will be successful, rather the Palestinians win and all of the Jews in the Middle East are wiped out, or vice versa, or some sort of middle ground conclusion, that's up to fate to decide, and that's up to whoever wants it more to win and decide. Now, I am a staunch proponent of, shall we say, overlapping geopolitical infestation that is a byproduct of conspiracy that can be traced back to Jewry and Zionist originating establishments. I do believe that international Jewry is a manipulating entity on world society, and especially in Western geopolitical institutions. And so, therefore, I do overall personally support Palestine as a proxy effort to combat Zionism. I despise Zionism, and I despise institutional Jewry.
Yeah.
I utterly abhor it.
Yeah.
I detest it.
Me too.
And I support Palestine as a means to an end.
Yeah.
And that end is to see Zionism and Jewry retreat to Israel borders and Israel borders only, if not outright eliminated. Now, would I ever call myself pro-Palestine? No, I wouldn't. And there are multiple reasons for that we can get into some stage if you want.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call myself pro-Palestine. I would call myself anti-Israel.
Anti-Israel. Okay. Well, look.
Yeah. I want to make that distinction. Overall, I do support the Palestinian cause, and I absolutely do subscribe to the theory of Jewry and Jewish hidden conspiratorial dominance over the world and over society.
Yeah.
I support anyone who's against that and anyone whose actions cause the advancement of resistance against that, which the Palestinian struggle does. And so I do overall consider myself an ally of the Palestinian struggle and the Palestinian people.
Okay, yeah, we have very, very similar takes. I'm actually, I would just downright say I'm pro-Palestine. Always have been. Free Palestine, 100%. What's going on is like fucking ridiculous. The amount of like children being blown up, it's crazy. And may God make it easier on everyone's families, etc. But what I was gonna say is that yeah, I support a lot of ideas that come from the nationalistic movement and whatever. I'm not a nationalist, just putting that out there as well. Like I support a lot of what they say, agree with a lot of it. I don't agree with all of it. But a lot of people do have this very mixed take on Israel Palestine, whereas half of the lot would be like, look, we're pro Israel, half would be like we're pro Palestine, and they give the reasons why. I'm 100% pro-Palestine, and I believe Zionism ultimately is the ultimate evil. There's no way in hell I'll ever succumb to the fact that that just because you're born, just because you exist, you rule the world. I'll never ever believe that, especially a human saying that to me. That's ultimately the ultimate ideology of Zionism is it's our promised land. We're born here. We exist, and no, I can never succumb to that ideology, because the moment I succumb,
the only true dangerous form of white supremacy is the supremacist mindset of the Jewish people.
Yeah,
Jewish supremacy and the resistance, the repudiation of irredentist Zionism is quite possibly very well perhaps the single most pertinent struggle
form of evil in this world,
of Western life and Western civilization in our time,
and Eastern, and because it's spreading everywhere. It's
myself and support the contribution of others.
Yes.
Go towards fighting that.
Yeah, I know. I'm 100% with that. That's one thing. Like, be it far left, be it far right, be it whatever you want to call any person with the ideology. Is that I like to believe that the sensible bunch of us people that live on this earth would agree that Zionism has no place amongst us.
I mean, think about it this way: people who are the furthest right hate Jews, and people who are the furthest left hate Jews. And anti-Semitism is, quite frankly, the single oldest form of racial or ethnic discrimination.
It's a made-up concept, in my opinion. Because a Semite, look, if you really want to talk about Semitism here, you could talk about the Arabs. People discriminate against those guys all the time. They're technically the real Semites too. So it's like that whole word anti-Semitism is just a word that the Zionists made up to.
It's certainly a subject that is utilized.
Yeah.
A component that is utilized for emotional blackmail.
Of course.
Emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
That then can be the source of a derived geopolitical blackmail.
Yeah.
I think that if every group of people other than yourselves that has come into contact with you through all of human history has ended up hating you and expelling you, well, I mean, logic dictates that you must be the problem rather than everybody else being the problem.
Yeah. Like you get kicked out of 50 schools. It's not the school's fault, man. It's probably just yours.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into, and this may be a topic for a whole separate other podcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot I can get into about this.
Yeah.
Like Judaism versus Jewry, ethnic Jews versus Zionists, this, that, and the other.
Like there's also liberal Jews.
Just to summarise, I'll say I am a hardcore, staunch, devoted anti-Zionist, and will support any cause that ultimately sees the recession of interest and the weakening of Israel as a state.
Yeah, 100%. Now, just to kind of finish up the podcast here, because we were we got into a lot of topics. We covered a lot: the LGBT, Islam, religion, Niall McConnell, your upbringing, etc., etc. We got through a lot, and I'm very, very happy to have you on. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we get to meet up in the future. You never know, man. One day you might even come to the mosque with me if you ever feel like it. No, honestly, though, I don't believe a lot of these nationalists. Would ever be opposed to such ideas. I believe if we all kind of, actually had a peaceful conversation like myself and yourself are, I think the world...
I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say this. There are a couple good things that I do have to say about Muslims.
Yeah.
One of them is this. I do truly believe that Muslims are per capita, on a person-to-person basis, the most devoted and the most truly committed
Yeah,
to
100%,
their religion
hundred
out
percent.
of all of the religious practices and organizations in the world.
Yeah,
I
hundred
truly
percent,
believe that. I believe per capita, if all Muslims and all Christians went to war, possibly even if all Muslims and everybody else outside of Islam went to war, Muslims would win. I believe the average Muslim is more devoted to Islam than the average follower of any other religion is to
hundred
that
percent.
religion. And that is something that I think that the and the I think that the prominence that Islamic faith has in Islamic following countries' cultures is more prominent than Christian faith's prominence in Christian cultured countries.
100%,
And
100%.
I think that is something to be admired to an extent, but only in Muslim countries. So long as it's kept contained in Muslim countries. I don't want to spread here. I don't want
Okay.
to spread outside of regions where it's native to, which I think is a fair enough compromise to state.
Okay, well, look, that's how you believe. Obviously, I would think a little bit different as opposed to you because I'm a follower of the religion as opposed to your God is your nation. So that's where we kind of like have a little bit of a disagreement there. But again, that's just our own separate ways.
Yeah, but
Fine.
you're not an Islamist, you
No,
know?
no.
You're a Muslim and you're clearly a devoted Muslim, fair enough, but you're not an Islamist. And this is something that even other nationalists, I would say, could do with better understanding.
Yeah,
There's a difference between a Muslim and an Islamist. All Islamists are Muslim, but the same
yeah.
act does not.
Well, there's extremism on every end. Of course, I would be a fool in denying the fact that there's no extreme Muslims. I've met a few extreme Muslims, and obviously to say that they don't exist is fucking ludicrous. But even the word Islamist, like that label should not be given to your day-to-day Muslim. Most of us are very normal people. We don't like radical beliefs. In fact, when you come across a radical Muslim, we think of them as lesser because they're making the good people look bad, and therefore we don't want to associate with them by default anyway. But what I was going to touch on now is the fact that you're still towards the end kind of years of your college. It's your second last year. What's in the future for Jake Fitzsimons? Will there be more protests? Is there any event where your local fan base or whoever can kind of see you around? Like what's in the future for Jake Fitzsimons?
Well, politically, I'm just going to keep speaking out for my cause. As many events as I can go to and make, I'll try to. Protests, conferences, what have you. I'll try and make as many as possible. I try to stay active. I try to stay on the street,
Yep.
stay in touch with the community.
Yep.
In terms of ones that are immediately or semi-immediately coming up that I know of, the next big protest is in May.
Hey.
That's being organised by Derek Bly, an activist in Cork, and it's taking place in Dublin. So I might be at that one. And
Okay.
then there'll be a few medium to small sized ones here or there. I might go to the one that's protesting against fuel prices
Yep.
throughout Dublin on Tuesday. I
Yep.
might go to that one. That's the immediate or short term. Medium to long term, I do plan on putting myself forward as a candidate in the 2029 local elections, either in the Laytown Bettystown district of Meath, or Drogheda and Louth, or one of the Dundalk districts of Louth. I still haven't decided that, but I do plan currently on presenting myself as a candidate in the 2029 local elections. I'm going to try and become student union president of my college at some point. I have a few more years to have a go with that because I plan on doing a bachelor's after my third year. So I've probably got at least 3 more goes at that. I performed pretty well just a couple of weeks ago in it.
Okay.
Career-wise, I do plan on going into the military. I'm in the reserves at the moment in my induction training, and I want to join the PDF after college. After I graduate, I'm going to do the reserves while I'm still studying, and after I graduate, I'd like to join the permanent defence forces, hopefully as an officer via cadetship, but I'm going to apply for it as many times as it takes. Yeah, and that's pretty much my intended life trajectory, and we'll just
Okay.
see where life takes me. And I'm just always grateful for being on the adventure that is life,
Okay.
and
Because that's
I'm
that's
excited to find out
that,
where it goes.
that's all life is. One big adventure, isn't it?
Oh,
Would you like to shout out any of your social medias, good sir?
yeah, I'm just Jake Fitzsimons on X, on TikTok, on Instagram.
Okay.
Look me up if you like what you see. Give me
Yeah.
a follow. Give me some reposts. Keep
Yep.
me in mind in the future. If you live in my local area in Meath, Loud, keep a particularly keen eye on me. Hopefully, I'll prove myself to be one to look out for.
Yep.
I'm confident in myself and I try to inspire confidence in others. And we'll just see where Jake Fitzsimons' place in the world ends up being. I look
Okay.
forward to finding out.
Well, listen, man. It was a pleasure having you on. Obviously, I like to do this with some guests as well. If you were to give one message to all the viewers out there, what would you tell every person that watches you? What should they take out of Jake Fitzsimons?
Even in the darkest and most difficult of times, always stand by your beliefs and your principles and stand for yourself on behalf of everything you live for. It can be difficult. Of course, sometimes it surely will be difficult. It will be challenging. It will require sacrifice of a part of yourself. But what's even more difficult is that feeling inside of not being able to look yourself in the mirror. So stay true to yourself always. Be who you are. Present yourself authentically to the world. And whether you are accepted or whether you are rejected is for fate to be decided. And the journey of life is something to be embraced and to be enjoyed and to be relished in. So just take appreciation for your existence and do your utmost best for yourself to mark your existence and make the rest of the world recognize your existence.
Okay.
Ramonka.
Amazing, brother. Listen, there we have it, folks. Episode 2 of the Uzzi Cast with Jake Fitzsimons. Thank you, everyone.